And welcome back to the Daily Wrap. It's potluck time. This is the part of the show where we shouldn't tell jokes during the commercial because then it's hard to transition out of. But it's also the part of the show where we go around the table and share our favorite stories of the day. Rick Unger and Heather Hansen, a rare collaborative effort between the two of you.
Yes, because we wanted to do something special for the Daily Wrap. Okay, so there's been a lot of talk lately in the news about the Supreme Court. Heather and I are both fans of, well, I don't know if we can say we're fans of the Supreme Court, but it's an institution of government that we both have an affinity for. And we decided that we would take a little time today first to discuss why there are some open questions. We all recall that last week, Dr. Ben Carson, who's running for president, said that we should be having a discussion as to whether or not the Supreme Court should have the power to review acts of Congress for their constitutionality. And I know I got a lot of tweets, whatever. I always have trouble with it. A lot of saying, well, you know, why does the Supreme Court get to do that? And what's fascinating about it is it never actually says in the Constitution that the judiciary has the power of review. That's interesting because if you read everything that surrounds it, and there's a great deal to read to see what the founders actually thought about this, they very much did believe in the concept of judicial review. It just makes sense. If Congress were to pass a law that is clearly unconstitutional, and the Constitution does say that it is the supreme law of the land, somebody's got to be able to say, wait a minute, that doesn't work. It's not going to be the president, is it? So that leaves the judiciary. But yet, when Ben Carson says it's not clear, in a sense, he's right in the fact that it never explicitly said it in the Constitution, but it was implied. How do we know that it was implied without going into the weeds on certain cases? In fact, there were two key cases, the result of which was that the Supreme Court made it clear that they have the power to review acts of Congress, virtually anything else that's passed to determine if it is constitutional. So now you see why we have this immense power and why so many people seem to think that there's legislation from the bench. It's not that they're legislating, but they are there to decide whether or not something that is legislated does or does not violate the Constitution. Now, because of that immense power, we've all seen it in action in recent years. We've seen it in action since the beginning of our nation, but we've seen the Obamacare case where you may have been happy with the result, you may have hated the result, but you see where this judicial review has a massive impact on policy. And we're about to see that even more, and I'm going to let Heather take it from there.
Well, the reason we're about to see it a little bit more is because 3, if not 4, of our current Supreme Court justices are at the age of retirement. 3 of them are greater than 80, and 1 is 78. The average age of retirement is 78.7. So you've got a bench that is about to retire, and the next president will have the ability to choose who is going to replace those people. And so when you talk about, as Rick said, this enormous power to create policy, these new justices will be doing just that. So you look at the issues that are coming up with our Supreme Court in the coming years. The NSA and what is the extent of their ability to do surveillance on the American people, that is likely to hit the Supreme Court in the next few years. We see gay marriage right now. The religious freedom issues that have come up are probably going to follow. More Obamacare. And many of the decisions that have been made in the past few years with regard to voting rights, campaign finance, gay rights, religion, have been decided 5-4. So it is so inherently important who is going to be on the bench. And so we've talked on this table many, many times about how foreign policy and the economy are going to be the driving factors in the next election. I think, and especially on the Democratic side, there's going to be a push for these policy issues, especially abortion. That's another thing that we didn't even talk about. I mean, there's so many things that the Supreme Court will ultimately decide. And whoever puts these people in as justices will affect not just your children, not just your grandchildren, but even for as long as they stick around.
Let me insert a quick question while you're explaining this. A lot of people say to me, well, there's not supposed to be politics in the Supreme Court, and there isn't. Right. That's why they're appointed for life, no politics. But yet most people believe there is politics.
With regard to the appointments, I mean, the people.
Well,
who-
and in terms of what they
once
do
they're
on
in
the
there,
court.
yes, yes. I mean,
what do
there's-
you say to that?
I think that everyone is political. It's impossible not to be. I mean, that's why I think very strongly that we should be recorded, and we should be able to see what goes on in there, and that there should be a lot more transparency in the process. It's our government, they're our court. We should be able to see what they're doing.
Right.
I think there's one way to actually get some of the politics out. It is inherent. We're political beings, and that's surprise. Show me a justice whose decisions surprise people. The truth is, Chief Justice Roberts and Justice Kennedy both do this, and that's what makes them, I think, great jurists. Show me a justice whose decisions
Roberts more so in
even
recent
more so,
history.
and that's the point. Show me justices who will write a surprising decision, and I'll show you a healthy court. Give me politicians who have the courage to
Although-
nominate those kind of jurists,
Although
and I'll show you a strong
many
court.
would say that Roberts' decision to make certain decisions was very much political.
And on that note, great job, by the way. I haven't seen a duet like that since, I don't know, Lita Ford and Ozzy Osbourne. Anyway, Yay or Nay is next. This is the Daily Wrap.